Thanks for saving me. By Estelle. Chapter 4. Talking to Todoroki becomes, weirdly enough, far easier than it had been before the closet incident. Izuku still can't really bring himself to think too hard about what had transpired, but the fact of the matter is that it had been, bar none, the most embarrassing thing he's ever done. And Todoroki hadn't pushed him away, not literally and not figuratively either. Instead, Todoroki had invited him to the Heroes' Gala, of all things. He could have not done that. Izuku doesn't know if Todoroki still felt a lingering obligation because Izuku had saved his life, but he didn't have to do something like this. So Izuku is forced to fully grasp, finally, that maybe Todoroki isn't going to get annoyed by being around him. Izuku is somewhat used to bothering people eventually with his nervous habits and awkwardness. Who would have thought that one of the people he didn't bother would be Pro-Hero Shouto? The realization makes him feel lighter than air and makes phone calls with Todoroki much less terrifying. Izuku's face still gets hot and the butterflies in his stomach never really go away, but he stops worrying that every little thing he says is going to make Todoroki hang up, never to call him again. One quiet evening, Izuku's phone buzzes with a message from him as he's studying for an exam. He snatches it up immediately. Todoroki, do you have a minute? I wanted to talk about plans for the gala. Izuku, yes, I'm here. All Might's voice announces he has a call a moment later, only managing to blare out, "Oh!" before Izuku answers. Hi, he says. Hey, Todoroki replies. This isn't a bad time, is it? No, Izuku tells him. I was just studying. This can wait until tomorrow if it's fine, really. Izuku insists hurriedly. It's nice to hear you. It's nice to hear. Good to talk to you. Oh, Todoroki says. You too. It hasn't been that long since Izuku visited a hero agency, but Todoroki's words bring a silly smile to his face. Thanks, he says and then winces. I mean, for thinking it's good to talk to me or wanting to talk to me, thank you for calling. I haven't even said what I called to tell you yet, Todoroki says. Right, the gala? Izuku asks. He's an idiot, but as he keeps trying to remind himself during moments of crippling awkwardness, it hasn't stopped him from being invited to go to a gala with Todoroki. Not like with Todoroki. That makes it sound too much like he's just going as Todoroki's friend. His guest? He is Todoroki's friend guest. Yes, Todoroki says. I'm sure you know most of the details, but since it's out of town this year, we'll travel and stay overnight. I'll cover all those expenses, obviously, so you don't need to worry. You will? Izuku squeaks. He did know the gala wasn't being held in Tokyo, but he's been too excited to stop and think about how he would pay for things, or who would pay for things on his behalf. Of course, Todoroki says. The travel part is easy. We'll take my plane. Izuku has to bite his fist to keep him screeching. He's going to get to fly on Todoroki's private jet! He might not make it through takeoff. Okay! He manages to wheeze finally. Good, Todoroki says. Now the main thing I called to discuss. Attire. Izuku laughs nervously. Yes! Do you have anything in mind? Any preference? Todoroki asks. The cut of the suit, the color. None, Izuku says, heading him off at the pass. Todoroki, you've seen my clothes. I have, Todoroki says. And I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. This makes Izuku grin. You don't have to be polite, he says. Just put me in something that's not going to embarrass you. You are going to be winning an award after all. Todoroki laughs. Not this again. Izuku rolls his eyes. They've been going back and forth over this for the past few days with him insisting and Todoroki refusing to listen. Todoroki keeps saying that there are more qualified gala nominees and that there's no way for Izuku to know. But Izuku does know. He believes Todoroki will win without a doubt. He always believes in Todoroki. If Todoroki wants to be obstinate, then Izuku will have to be too. I'm positive, Izuku says. You really seem to be. Todoroki sighs, humoring him. He pauses, inhales. But you wouldn't, you know. What do you want? Embarrass me, Todoroki tells him. You could wear the maroon one, honestly. I can't! Izuku says, horrified at the thought. That's not why I'm offering to help you find something to wear, Todoroki continues. I just want you to be... I don't want you to think I'm embarrassed by you. I'm not. Okay, Izuku says he currently feels embarrassed of himself. I never have been, Todoroki continues. Not when you saved me, not in the interview, not on the tour. He stops speaking abruptly. Izuku can feel himself withering away. Okay, he says again, much more shrilly. It is a relief to be told outright that Todoroki isn't rethinking everything, but he is not ready to discuss the class incident yet, or ever. Todoroki clears his throat. I can arrange to have you fit in fursuit. Oh, Izuku says. Wow, that's fancy. It's a fancy party, Todoroki says. Could you make time in the afternoon next week? Izuku can, and so Todoroki tells him he'll book a time with his tailor, the same one who fits him for everything from business suits to exercise wear to his hero outfit. All the logistics sorted out, Izuku thanks Todoroki one final time and then hovers nervously, not quite wanting to say goodbye yet. I'll talk to you later then? Soon, Todoroki says. It reassures Izuku somehow. Good night, Todoroki-san. Good night, Todoroki says, but before Izuku can quite hang up, he suddenly adds, I meant to ask, how was your day? Oh! Izuku says, surprised. It was good! He starts to tell Todoroki about a lab project he worked on that day, and then about his most recent club meeting. Todoroki doesn't stop him, and before Izuku realizes it, it's been at least another hour, and he really does have to force himself to hang up because Todoroki has an early morning patrol, and Izuku has to finish studying. The following week, Wednesday, arrives quickly. It's the day they've settled on for the suit fitting after Izuku finishes with club activities for the day. Someone will be coming to pick him up to take him to the tailor, but another member's presentation runs a bit long, and the whole meeting ends up stretching on past their usual time to let out. Izuku waits anxiously, not wanting to be rude, but as soon as they wrap up, he jumps out of his seat and starts packing up his things, sending off a hurried text message to Shouto. Izuku, could you let the driver know I'm on my way? Sorry to keep him waiting, we finished late. Like clockwork, his phone starts ringing. Panicking slightly, he fumbles to pick it up. I'm heading up right now. No rush, Todoroki says calmly. You said room 302 in the Humanities building, right? Yes! Izuku huffs, trying to juggle his phone, books, club materials, and the bag he's trying to stuff everything in as he heads for the door. Sorry, Todoroki-san. Todoroki? Someone asks from behind him. Izuku spins around, phone still clutched to his face, to see the whole of his club staring at him, trapped, while he struggles ineffectively with the door to the classroom. There's no way they could have failed to hear his brief conversation. Immediately, he starts to sweat. The first thing Todoroki had asked when he gave Izuku his number was if he could trust him, and Izuku just let it slip that he has it to about 2 dozen random people. You have Shouto's number? One of the first years asks. Mayumi muffles an excited shriek behind her hands. Oh! Izuku says as a bead of anxious perspiration trickles down the side of his face. Well, you see... Come on! The vice president pushes past the others as Izuku continues to wink at them all in terror. She surveys him very coldly. Midoriya-kun, this is getting so awkward. I know that you think you're his biggest fan and all, but you can't just make stuff up. Izuku gapes at her. She thinks he was faking the phone call? Actually, he could use this to his advantage. He has to admit that he, too, would assume he was faking the phone call if he wasn't himself. Eyes averted, he gropes for the door handle behind him, laughing awkwardly as he tries to escape. God, yeah, you're right. Ha ha. He has got to get out of here. He can never show his face at the club meeting again. I guess there's no way he'd ever give me his number. Someone pulls the door open abruptly and he yelps. I did give you my number, though. A familiar voice says blankly, and Izuku realizes he never hung up the call, and that Todoroki is, in fact, now standing in the doorway, right behind him. Oh! Izuku says faintly. Hello! He ends the call. Slowly, cheeks burning, he turns to face Todoroki. He can barely bring himself to do it. But he looks up, all the way up, until he meets Todoroki's eyes. This is vastly unfair. Izuku hadn't even realized Todoroki was going to come fetch him personally. And is he trying to kill Izuku by looking so good doing it? He's dressed more casually than Izuku has ever seen him, outside of creepy tabloid shots of him going about his day off duty. The gray Henley he's wearing seems like it can barely contain him, stretched tight across his chest, biceps straining against the thin fabric of the long sleeves pushed up to his elbows. Todoroki looks good in jeans, Izuku muses. From somewhere far outside his head, he feels like he's having an out-of-body experience. The rough, laid-back look of his clothes is offset by the dark beanie and big sunglasses he's wearing, which gives him a soft and vaguely hilarious incognito look. Up close, though, it's still recognizably him, especially when he talks. "Ready," is all Todoroki says. He's staring down at Izuku with a careful blank expression that Izuku is too shell-shocked to try and puzzle out. "Yes," Izuku says, demurely. Todoroki looks at the rest of the club, who are all still frozen in shock, and nods. Izuku swallows, wondering what he'll say. Maybe he'll tell them all not to bother trying to get his contact info from Izuku because he's going to make Izuku delete it. Maybe Todoroki is already planning on changing his number. "I don't know if he's my biggest fan," Todoroki says, shrugging. "He's a good friend, though. Sorry for interrupting." He waves in farewell and starts walking away. Izuku forgets to follow, momentarily just as stunned as everyone else. The vice president's mouth is hanging open. She covers it with her hand. Izuku isn't sure if she has anything else to say or not, but he quickly bows before she can get the chance and scurries after Todoroki. They don't talk until they're in the car. It's far too quiet inside the vehicle, and Todoroki doesn't seem like he's going to venture any comments. Izuku folds his hands in his lap. "I didn't mean for them to find out," he blurts out when the silence goes on for too long. "I should have been more careful." "I didn't intend for you to keep it entirely clandestine," Todoroki says. "I just didn't want you giving it out or pasting my number on chat forums." "I wouldn't!" Izuku gasps. "I know," Todoroki says, his lips twitch. "That's why I gave it to you in the first place." Izuku tries to smile, but it comes out wobbly. "So you heard everything?" "I got the gist of it," Todoroki admits. "Does that happen often?" Izuku hesitates. "Not all the time, but sometimes." "She's that fan artist," Todoroki says. "She comes to events a lot. I recognize her." "Yeah." "She seems like an asshole." Not expecting this, Izuku wheezes out a laugh. "Todoroki-san! She's forceful!" "Forcefully, it asks," Todoroki mutters, which makes Izuku giggle harder. "We just started off on kind of the wrong foot," he says, briefly, and with as little detail as possible. He explains their falling out to Todoroki. Todoroki's eyebrows rise to his hairline, and Izuku's explanation gets more nervous and scattered as the temperature in the car drops and an almost imperceptibly thin layer of frost creeps over the right side of Todoroki's face. "I think I should have a discussion with her," he says stiffly once Izuku is done. "No!" Izuku moans. "That might be worse. Besides, it doesn't bother me that much. I'm just relieved you're not upset." Todoroki says, "All right. I guess I'm relieved too." "You are?" Izuku asks. What is there for Todoroki to be relieved about? "Yes," Todoroki says. "I thought I'd made things awkward by trying to follow you on Twitter." Izuku smiles serenely at him, uncomprehending. "What?" "I worried maybe you didn't want me to follow you since you never accepted my request," Todoroki explains. "But you said you turned off notifications, right?" Izuku's expression turns to stone, smile freezing on his face. Like his life flashing before his eyes, his Twitter feed scrolls past in his mind. He's intensely geeky, hero analysis heavy, Shouto obsessed feed. The last thing he retweeted was a photo shoot of Todoroki's back muscles. He screeches, "Ah! You can't follow me, I'm sorry!" Benign shock filters across Todoroki's beautiful face. "Oh, not because it's not anything you've done, it's really not you, it's me!" Izuku says desperately. Todoroki rubs his chin contemplatively. "Not something I was expecting to hear at this stage." Izuku expires. He slumps against the window of the car in boundless despair. "Todoroki-san! I'm trying to protect you!" This makes Todoroki laugh that soft laugh of his. "I see." Izuku cracks one eye open to peer at him. Todoroki really looks so good in his soft, comfy clothes, almost smile creeping onto his features, afternoon sunlight shining through the car window behind him. Izuku has always assumed that cameras couldn't really do Todoroki justice, and now he sees it's true. Todoroki always looks very handsome, but Izuku doesn't know that he's ever seen him truly relaxed. It doesn't surprise him somehow that Todoroki manages to be so much more good-looking in close proximity than in photos. What is surprising, but no less wonderful, is how funny he is in real life. "You like messing with people," Izuku accuses, "but nobody realizes it, so you always get away with it." Todoroki looks very deliberately out the window. "But you see right through me, apparently." Izuku opens both eyes. "I don't think I want to see through you. I just like seeing you for who you really are." Todoroki's expression softens for one brief moment before Izuku adds, "Which is sometimes a joke." Todoroki stretches out one long leg and lightly kicks Izuku, who grins and kicks him lightly back, and then the driver announces that they've arrived and it's time to get out. The tailor is located in a quiet upscale part of Tokyo that Izuku hasn't had cause to venture to before. The driver drops them right outside the shop, where tastefully arranged mannequins behind the glass windows display a variety of finely cut suits and other menswear. A doorman opens the entrance to admit them, and Izuku finds himself immediately surrounded by people offering to take his hoodie, store his backpack, asking if he would like anything to drink, providing slippers when he steps out of his shoes. It's like entering a fancy hotel as opposed to a clothing store. "Wow!" Izuku whispers as they are led to a private room where the fitting will take place. A short elderly man is waiting to greet them, bowing deeply when they enter.
"Todoroki-san, so good to see you," he says warmly. "Are you keeping well?"
"I am, thank you, Shinoda-san," Todoroki says, returning the bow. Izuku bows as well, feeling jittery.
"This must be Midoriya-san,"
Shinoda says. Izuku whips his head up. He's never been addressed so formally or politely before. I'm in, yes."
"Excellent, excellent. Stand up straight. Let's get a good look at you."
Shinoda prods Izuku out of his characteristic slouching, straightening his shoulders, has him turn all the way around. Izuku thinks he sees the man's eyes flash purple, and then Shinoda is motioning for an assistant and giving them all Izuku's measurements as the woman quickly jots them down. He can measure anything just by looking at it, Todoroki informs Izuku upon seeing his quizzical look. Izuku's eyes widen. "Anything? Does it have a limit? Can you measure liquids as well as solids? Volume? I mean, what about—"
"Incredible," Shinoda says. He glances at Todoroki. "As sharp as you described him. I can see why you took such a liking to him."
Todoroki nods and Izuku blushes furiously. "Quirks are very interesting to me," he says lamely, as if it's not obvious.
"I see that," Shinoda says. "Suits are very interesting to me, so I'm very glad Todoroki-sama brought such a bright young man to my shop, so I can ensure you stand out as much as you deserve."
"Oh gosh!" Izuku says, feeling very bowled over by all this. The lavish treatment, the praise, and apparently Todoroki telling people things about him. Good things! He's got to be careful not to let it go to his head, he thinks resolutely.
"Let's try you in a couple of our exclusive pieces," Shinoda tells him as assistants start to bring out suit after crisp, well-pressed suit. They get started dressing Izuku right away. He tries out standard black, charcoal, powder blue, even a dark green, but Todoroki and Shinoda both survey him in each before shaking their heads and moving on to the next. Finally, however, he comes out in a light gray tuxedo and both their eyebrows lift. "This," Todoroki says. "It has to be this," Shinoda agrees, "but it will need to be altered." He beckons to a different assistant, whose quirk seems to be similar to Bez Jeanist's. She can manipulate fabric, shrinking or stretching it as well. As she starts on the alterations, Shinoda turns his attention to Todoroki. "Have you given yours much thought?" he asks.
Todoroki shakes his head. "I hadn't. I was thinking maybe a navy." Izuku makes a guttural noise in his throat that he doesn't quite manage to conceal fast enough. He purses his lips together, immediately avoiding looking in their direction. "Midoriya," Todoroki asks. "Nothing." "I feel like that was definitely something," Todoroki says. "Was wrong." "Really nothing," Izuku tries to insist. "It's just, well, maybe." "Maybe," Todoroki says. "Why?" Izuku really wishes he could learn to keep his mouth shut. He can't, though, so he steamrolls ahead. First, he tries to set the stage. Well, not that long ago, one of the people in my club did a presentation on you. She's a really big fashion buff, so a lot of it was on costume history, but she talked about the warring hairstyles era, too. The time when you were just starting out as a pro. Todoroki blinks. Is that what people call it? That is what people call it, yes, Izuku tells him, as Shouto nods knowingly. Todoroki sighs, looking resigned. I refuse to believe that there's anything worthwhile to discuss about the hairstyle choices I made when I was 19. Well, probably not to you, but people get in really heated discussions over it anyway, Izuku says. It's sort of all in fun, but also sort of serious. People argue a lot about what was best, though I think the current favorite is still when you grew it out super long. Really? Todoroki says, his exasperation transitions to surprise. I only did that to piss off my dad. I knew it! Izuku says, snapping. You knew, Todoroki asks. How? The amount of press photo ops of the two of you together is practically non-existent from your shoujo prince phase. My what? Fan nickname, Izuku says, waving his hand. I always thought it was strange at the time, given you were still at his agency. You noticed that, Todoroki says. Izuku can't tell if he's impressed or despairing. Izuku has realized by now, though, that his insane amount of recall tends to just amuse Todoroki, so he doesn't try to deny it. He told me when I graduated that my hair was getting too long, and then it made me look like an anime character. I thought I could do even better. Shouto chuckles as Izuku smiles. He remembers the long hair days pretty fondly. Everyone lost their minds over every new picture, and whether Todoroki had pulled it into a bun or a braid had been an event on a practically national scale. There were so many accounts dedicated to images of the nape of Todoroki's neck. You did look very elegant, he says. Anyway, the point is, a lot of people also have strong opinions about what kind of clothes you looked best in, pretty much based on what you were doing with your hair at the time. How do people have time to make these judgments? Todoroki asks. Don't they have jobs, school, lives?
Clothing coordination is a life for some,
Shouto says sagely, causing Todoroki to put his hands together in apology. For your long hair, everyone liked the white suit best, Izuku explains. The one you wore on the red carpet to the premiere of Twinkling's first movie. Ah, Todoroki says. He requested I wear that. It matched your look really well, though, Izuku says. Was that your favorite hairstyle, too? Todoroki asks him. The question catches him off guard. Mine? Mm-hmm. Izuku continues. I think my favorite was probably Punk Prince. Please tell me you don't mean the mohawk, Izuku says, grinning broadly as Todoroki shakes his head. That was a joke, he says, real regret creeping into his voice as Izuku laughs. I only did that because I heard Bakugo wanted to get one, so I did it first. Izuku wheezes with laughter. What? Why? Despite him, obviously, he was furious. Oh my gosh, Izuku says as realization dawns. That's why he blew up in that interview when they asked him what he thought of your hair. I didn't plan that, Todoroki says, but he still thinks I did to this day. Izuku isn't sure whether or not Todoroki completely believes him about the mohawk, but he doesn't push him further. Truthfully, Izuku had always liked any of the styles he tried out, no matter what they were. The rotating hairstyles had always seemed to him kind of silly, a more playful side of himself Todoroki didn't show very often, but that clearly existed nonetheless. But if he's being honest, Izuku would have to say that his current style, a bit too short for bangs, but easy to push back or to the side, always a bit windswept, might be his favorite. Maybe it's because it makes Todoroki look a bit more mature, or maybe it's just because Izuku is getting to know him so well now, while he has it styled that way. Either way, it suits Todoroki. What suit was best on the mohawk? Todoroki asks, sounding genuinely curious at this point. That's an easy one. The electric blue suit you wore for that benefit party.
Ah!
Shouto says, clapping his hands together.
I told you that suit was a statement, but you were convinced it was hideous.
It sort of was, Todoroki says. He seems to be amused at finding himself ganged up on. Maybe I was too young to realize its worth at the time.
Shouto swats the air dismissively. He's as young as you were, but he's putting you to shame. He must have an eye for this.
Oh no, I really don't, Izuku says. He can see Todoroki's mouth twitch and knows he's thinking, maroon. I just know what looks good on Todoroki-san.
You are the expert, Shinoda says. So what do you suggest now?
Izuku had expected Shinoda to make the final decision either way, but Todoroki seems to be interested in hearing his answer as well. He puts his chin in his palm, thinking hard. Todoroki's hair now is the opposite of those early styles. He reminds Izuku of a film star as much as a pro hero sometimes. His looks these days are understated and classy, mature. Something dark, Izuku says, nodding decisively. Kinda mysterious?
Ah,
Shinoda says, approving. He taps the side of his nose conspiratorially.
I think I have just the thing.
Finished, announces the seamstress, altering the suit Izuku is wearing.
Midoriya-sama, turn so we can see,
Shinoda says, and Izuku does as asked. He turns in a slow, full circle. Behind him is a mirror, and he pauses when he sees his reflection. The suit is fitted absolutely perfectly. The cut makes his normally skinny frame look lean and slender instead. The light shade of the gray doesn't distract from the dark green of his hair and eyes, and actually seems to make the color pop, as he imagines a person who knows much more about these sorts of things than himself would say. It makes him look pretty okay, he thinks. He thinks he could wear this to the gala and not feel like he's embarrassing himself or Todoroki. He turns back to face the other two again, smiling nervously, and stops at the look on Todoroki's face. Todoroki is staring too, staring at all of Izuku. His lips are parted slightly, as if in shock, and his eyes are darting everywhere, taking in what seems like every inch of Izuku, studying him from head to toe. The way he's looking makes Izuku's face start to burn hot, but it doesn't feel like nerves as usual. He's Todoroki-san? He says breathlessly. Is this okay? Todoroki swallows. Then he seems to snap out of whatever weird trance he's in, nodding jerkily. It looks perfect. Now Izuku starts to blush from shyness. He can only nod back, too awkward and flustered to actually say anything. We'll take it, Todoroki tells Shinoda. Not long after the fitting, Todoroki leaves Japan for a mission overseas. He can't say much about it to Izuku, only that he'll be back about a week before the gala. Izuku spends the next few days in a fit of anxious excitement, reading up on all the info about the event, the heroes who will be in attendance. He needs to make sure he brushes up on everyone, the awards that will be presented. It seems like time is passing both too quickly and very slowly. On the weekends, he decides to visit his mom, just to combat some of the jitters. Inko has been made well aware of all the recent escalating craziness in his life, and though she can't quite keep up with the level of his intensity, she does her best. She understands the freakouts at least. After all, his room is only covered in Shouto posters, and the merch is all he wanted for birthdays when asked for the past 8 years. So, you're staying overnight for the gala? His mom asked as Izuku helps her make dinner. It's a quiet Saturday evening. The TV is on in the background, and the hero news program and running water and quick chopping of vegetables are all familiar sounds, a backdrop he's familiar with. It does help him feel calm. Yeah, just the one night at some fancy hotel, Izuku tells her. Todoroki gave him the name. It's 5-star and looks very nice. Oh, his mother says, smiling. Seems kind of serious. I hope it'll be more fun than serious, Izuku says as she laughs. I didn't mean the event. I meant you, she explains. This relationship you have with Todoroki-san. He likes you. Izuku stops cutting potatoes to look at her. His mother is smiling as she cooks. Little crow's feet around her eyes wrinkled with happiness. Izuku shouts as he realizes what she's suggesting. Mom! No! What? Izuku, she says. You've been on 2 dates already, and now the gala? 2? He splutters. Where are you getting these numbers? There was the time he invited you to see his agency. That was a tour. And the time he took you to get a suit, which he paid for. Because I needed one, Izuku points out. It was just a suit fitting. And you had dinner together afterwards? She asks, like he needs reminding. Yes, but he made reservations, Inko says. This is all true. They'd gone to eat at one of the fancy restaurants in the area after the tailor. Izuku isn't actually sure, though, if Todoroki made reservations or if the waitstaff just let them in upon recognizing who he was once he removed the beanie and sunglasses. But it wasn't a there was nothing special about it, besides the fact that he was having actual dinner at an actual restaurant with actual Todoroki Shouto. It was just dinner, because they were friends, like Todoroki had told Izuku's clubmates. It wasn't like that, he says to his mom. Todoroki is just really nice, but I don't mind that at all. I like being his friend. Izuku, Inko says again, but it's not teasing anymore, just warm. She stands on her toes, and he ducks down slightly, not all that much, so she can kiss his forehead. I know you do, and I like that he likes being your friend too. They smile at each other, and it's then that a few snatches of a breaking news report on TV catch Izuku's attention. Brought into a local hospital after suffering injuries during a villain encounter overseas. The young hero was apparently working an undercover mission at the time. Izuku turns, feeling like he's moving in slow motion. He hears his mother gasp right as he sees the TV and the news report and the picture of Todoroki overlaid on top of footage from whatever fight had taken place. He blinks, unable to process what he's seeing at first. Then it sinks in. Todoroki got hurt. The news report continues on. Although he is expected to recover, it was surely a very worrying brush with disaster. At this time, neither Shouto's agency or hospital officials are currently releasing any information to the public. Shouto! Oh God! Izuku says softly. Mom, sorry, She doesn't try to stop him when he runs to his room, shutting the door behind him to dig out his phone. For a minute, he feels frozen. Is it all right for him to try to contact Todoroki? Will Todoroki even want to hear from him right now? Shit! Izuku murmurs before he sends a text, fingers shaking. Izuku, please be okay. He's not expecting a reply right away, and he doesn't get one. For a long time he sits staring at his phone before he slumps sideways on his bed. He doesn't feel tired at all, so he just lays there staring at the walls. Todoroki, hot and cold hero Shouto, stares back at him from every surface. Posters, figurines, photographs. Izuku has them all, treasures each one that he's carefully and lovingly researched and added to his collection over the years. For his whole adolescence, he dreamed in this room of what it would be like to be a hero, to be somebody, to be on equal footing with this man. Shouto was his hero, but Todoroki Shouto is human. Like his quirky is two halves of some unnameable whole. Todoroki is hot and cold. He's intimidating and kind, serious and funny, unreadable sometimes, and an open book at others. And as much as Izuku idolized him as a hero, he feels something so much more for the person he's come to know. His mom knocks on his door later to ask quietly if he can eat anything, but he says he's not hungry. His stomach can't handle it right now. Eventually, without realizing he's fading, he falls asleep with his phone clutched in his hand. It's his phone buzzing that wakes him up hours later in the middle of the night. Not a call. A text message. He gasps, instantly wide awake when he sees it. Todoroki. It's okay, I'm fine. Izuku doesn't even think before he dials Todoroki's number. It's the first time he's called Todoroki in response to a text instead of the other way around. It barely rings before the line picks up. Midoriya, I didn't want to wake you up. Todoroki-san! Izuku says. His voice cracks and Todoroki stops speaking mid-sentence. Todoroki-san! Todoroki's voice is soft when he murmurs, You were worried. Izuku starts babbling. The news only just said you were expected to recover, and I didn't know what that meant. I know that's stupid, but I couldn't stop thinking. He trails off. He kept thinking of terrible things. He's mad at himself for even considering them because he knows Todoroki is strong. But texting Todoroki and not having him call back right away for once was so scary. You couldn't stop thinking we'd miss the gala. Todoroki fills in. Izuku gapes into the dark of his room. I didn't think of that once! Todoroki snorts and Izuku gasps. Are you teasing me right now? No, Todoroki amends quickly. I figured you weren't worried about that. But I didn't want to make you miss out, so maybe I was projecting. We'll definitely make it, though. Todoroki-san, I don't care about the gala at all right now, Izuku says sternly. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. You can't believe this. Todoroki is lying injured in some foreign hospital somewhere, mocking him. What a terrible, wonderful man. I am. Todoroki reassures him. It was just some bad cuts, a dislocated shoulder. Mild concussion. That doesn't sound okay, Izuku says as heat breaks at the corner of his eyes. I've been through far worse, Todoroki tells him. Remember how I almost died the first time we met? Yeah, but you didn't wind up in the hospital, Izuku argues. That's true, Todoroki concedes. I guess it's because you weren't here to help me this time. Izuku's breath shudders. For some stupid reason, this is what sets him off. It's ridiculous. It was a 1 in a million chance how they met, and even slimmer odds that Izuku managed to protect Todoroki, let alone save his life. And still, if he could do it again, if he could spare Todoroki from getting hurt. Todoroki says when he realizes what's happening. No, that was a bad joke. I'm sorry, don't cry. Izuku bites his lip to try and stop, but it's never that easy for him. It was just a lot worse than I thought it would be hearing about it. It's the way my job works, Todoroki says. I know I'm being an idiot, but... Shouto? He stops. He's never not once called Todoroki that before. That wasn't a hero Shouto, that was a first name Shouto. That was an accident. He wipes his eyes desperately with his sleeve. Sorry, You're not. No, I really am. You're not an idiot, Todoroki clarifies. I appreciate you worrying about me. Oh! You don't have to be sorry about calling me that either. Izuku knows Todoroki wouldn't be mad about it. He's very informal himself, and he doesn't seem to care about social hierarchy or that he's older than Izuku or anything like that. But it feels like something really big to Izuku. Izuku, Todoroki says. Izuku lets out a soft gasp that he is sure still carries over the phone. Todoroki has never used his first name either, only ever called him Midoriya. His name, said by Todoroki, sounds... He curls into a ball on his side, phone pressed to his ear, mouth wobbling hopelessly. Yes! You can call me Shouto. Like your hero name? Todoroki's laugh is low and quiet and sweet in his ear. Izuku shuts his eyes and thinks helplessly about his mouth, his lips. His voice is so close. No, Todoroki says. My actual name. Izuku exhales very shakily and all in a rush. Oh gosh, I don't think I could do that. This is not mandatory. Todoroki relents, still sounding amused. Sorry. Don't be. Todoroki says, thank you again for checking on me. You should sleep though. Yeah, Izuku says. It's 3 a.m. See you in a few days? Looking forward to it. Todoroki says. There's a long silence on both ends of the line. Do we have to hang up? Izuku blurts out. What the hell? What a weird thing to... No. It takes Izuku a moment to register what Todoroki has said. He's still reeling from his own audacity. He bites his lip. I don't want to hang up, he confesses. Then I won't, Todoroki says, simple as that. Eventually, at his insistence, Izuku puts him on speaker, laying the phone next to him on his pillow. The sound is a bit fuzzy, but he can hear Todoroki's breathing slow and calm. Maybe Izuku should feel weird, but he just feels relieved. He doesn't have to hang up and go back to staring at Todoroki on his walls, knowing he's really in a hospital bed somewhere with a concussion. As he falls asleep, Izuku can't help but think about what it means that this adoration he's always had for the hero in his posters pales in comparison to how much he cares about the real Todoroki.